are very grateful for your support and your presence here today. And I would like to thank Father. You have provided great words of comfort to us. I would like to thank the altar girls for your assistance today. Our wonderful organist Shirley and the Sacred Heart Church Choir, we very much appreciate it. The staff of Opsal Costal Funeral Home, we are so appreciative of all of your efforts. And sometimes at gatherings like this, it's a great send-off. It's kind of the end of the sentence. With Gene, he still has works left to be published. I believe my brother Derek found some research papers he had submitted on the field of parasitology that he submitted 1 week ago today, Tuesday. So his legacy will truly live on, and for that we are grateful. I was asked to speak today on behalf of my Uncle Bob, who is kind of the family poet, writer, and he and his wife, Nona Lyons, live in Kennebunk, Maine. They were unable to make the journey for Gene's send-off, so they asked me to convey a few remarks for them. Today our family comes together once again to perform the ancient rites of passage. Now in our tradition, these are the last occasion when the living and the recently departed can enjoy each other's company. Well, quitting time has finally come for this scholar of many of God's creatures, a planned and sensible withdrawal from this land for our brother Gene. We take his joys and we bear the sorrows. He will fear no more the heat of the sun, nor the furious winter's rages. His worldly tasks are done. Home art gone and taken his wages. Bob writes that when he thinks of Gene, a smile comes to him, remembering so many pleasant times in travel and telephone conversations. When he and Nona moved to Ireland, Gene was the first visitor of many that followed. He was accompanied by my parents, Jack and Margaret. They drove all over the west of Ireland. And Gene had the manner of a school kid on his first field trip. As they were driving through the wonders of Ireland's ancient landscape, Gene would shout from the back seat, "Stop! Bob, I want to take a picture of this." And like the scientist researcher he always was, he would photograph the historic plaque describing some ancient dolmen or mound, and then the object itself. Bob then writes, on his rare visits to our cottage in Maine, I remember coming down in the morning to find him sitting on the kitchen stool with his ever-present binoculars in hand, looking out back at the birds in their meadow. Now, Gene was always the student, the scholar of any landscape, to put it properly, and Gene was always learning and sharing his learning. His entire life was one of service and mission to educate and help others. And I think that's a legacy of his mother, Mary Lyons. Now, Gene is the first of the 6 octogenarian brothers to pass. Quitting time for Gene came last Thursday while he was making his rounds to the horse farms early in the morning at the University of Kentucky. Years ago, Bob and Nona had the good fortune to tag along with him for this early morning research exercise. Now, all the horse barn staff would greet Dr. Lyons with great respect. He mentored dozens of young researchers at the University of Kentucky, and he tutored many international young scholars and veterinarians who showed up at his doorstep to learn more of what he was doing in the field of parasitology. His university department put out a press release following his death. Dr. Lyons was a legend, a giant in veterinary parasitology. And as our good Irish friend Patty said, Gene's work brought respectability to the field of parasitology. In 1950, when Gene was home on furlough from the Coast Guard, he would sometimes be dressed in his full bell-bottom navy trousers. And Gene at the time had a head of very curly black hair. So the story goes, Gene was walking down Main Street in Yankton, and every head turned at the sight of him. And Bob says he can say without any of his brothers dissenting, Gene was the most good-looking brother of the entire Lyons fraternity. It was just 3 months ago that Gene sent Bob a favorite poem that he enjoyed. You may recognize the last lines, "Miles to go before I sleep." At the time, Gene commented that this last line is the most famous of quotes, and countless academics argue why it's repeated twice. Gene said that its underlying meaning is the unfinished business that we have while we are still alive. I will read this passage now. It's "Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening" by Robert Frost. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and the frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds, the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. Gene's rounds ended in the early dawn last week. The blue moon of Kentucky whispered from on high and said, goodbye. Gene was a man of grace. As the poet says, he was a man. Take him for all in all, we shall not look upon his life like again. Sit tibi terra levis. May the earth rest lightly on you, Brother Gene, as you now sleep between the Dakota side.